Yeah, I will make you co-host. 1 minute. So today program, I'm not keeping it in unlisted. Okay, I'm keeping it in public. Okay, I'm keeping it in public. Let everybody see. Okay, because definitely I know it will be a very quality presentation. No, definitely, yeah, definitely it will be. I know you, yeah.
Too many hopes.
Yeah.
Too many expectations will end up in hurt.
It is not expectation. It is not expectation. It is certain people when they do something, we know it.
Core
Okay.
belief.
Okay, team. Thank you very much. I have made a co-host. Okay, I am leaving the session. Okay, I am leaving the session because I will be seeing it in YouTube. Okay, I will be seeing in YouTube, or I will be seeing after some time. Okay, I want Rashmi to conduct the program as if she is the top leader today. She is the director today. So if I am there, maybe inconvenient. So I'm just exiting. I'm leaving the group. Fatma, 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 Fatma ji. Fatma
Yes,
ji.
sir. Yes, yes, sir.
Fatma ji, I am making you host. You are the host and Rashmi is the co-host. Okay?
Okay, okay.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. All the best, Rashmi.
Okay, so good evening, everybody. Before I start randomly presenting and going forward with CBT, I would like to know who all here knows about CBT, be it basic, advanced, or whatever, or at least heard of it, whatever.
I have some idea.
Okay.
About CBT.
Right. Anybody else? Okay, Patricia, when you say some idea, could you let me know like what are some things that you know?
Even I know about it.
Okay, Shilpa.
The full form is cognitive behavior therapy, and
Okay.
it's something to do with our thoughts, feelings, emotions, and our behavior.
Right.
And there was one thing I as I was reading and making my notes, is it something the same thing as RDBT, or it is something different, or it is RDBT is part of CBT? So that's a little confusion there.
Right. So I would come to that. I mean, as we know that we all, I mean, most of us don't know what CBT is. So as I progress, I will be able to give you this answer, whether RDBT is part of CBT or is CBT and RDBT different and things like that, right? Okay, Shilpa ji.
Yeah, so I know that it is on the basis of emotion we behave. So first we feel and then we behave. So the whole therapy relies on this only.
Okay, Shilpa, I'll take you through this. There's little bit change in what you said. So we'll see what CBT actually is, okay? So I'll start sharing my screen. Just confirm if you are able to see it or not. Is it visible?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay. So as you all know, we have been saying CBT, CBT, CBT. So what is CBT? CBT is basically like what Patricia said, it's cognitive behavioral therapy. So the name itself specifies it's cognitive. Cognitive means cognitions, means thoughts. And behavior, everybody knows it's behavior. And that's the therapy, CBT. Okay. So we'll just get into what CBT is. So basically, the CBT is a pattern of thinking, feeling, and behaving certain factors that we experience, be it good or bad. Since these factors like thinking, feeling, and behaving have certain significant impact in our experiences, it might alter our or change our experiences, right? So, for example, the way we think, our behavior and our experiences alter, right? If you think negatively, you would have all heard that, think positive, think positive. Why do people say that? Because continuous thinking with positive will make sure that your experiences or outcomes will result in positivity, right? So that's how it is. So basically our experiences, our situations, our outcomes depends a lot on how we think, right? So CBT aims to change our thought patterns, our consciousness, our unconscious beliefs, our attitudes, and ultimately our behavior in order to help face difficulties and achieve goals. So why to use CBT or when to use CBT? If I have to ask you this, could anybody answer? Why do we have to use CBT? Where is CBT helpful?
Now, clients who have a lot of negative thinking and also in behavior, in when we have to alter the or bring up changes in the behavioral pattern in children.
Right. And why do you think that, we should change those thoughts or behaviors?
Because sometimes we have a wrong notion of our expectation on expectations or on our experiences.
Right. So basically in CBT, we call this as faulty thoughts or automatic negative thinking. Okay. So what happens is sometimes people do not want to think negative, but it comes automatically to them. And they also sometimes feel very helpless that, okay, they're thinking in a particular way. So all the things that you said, Patricia, that, sometimes they have faulty notions, wrong beliefs, negative thinking and things like that. So these in CBT, we call it as cognitive distortions. Okay. So now what distortion is? Distortion is basically, as the name says, distorted thoughts, distorted thinking patterns, or faulty negative thoughts is called cognitive distortions. So basically there are 15 main cognitive distortions that we would study today. So going with first one, it is called filtering. So what filtering is? Filtering refers to the way a person can ignore all of the positive and good things in life and focus only on the negative. And I would give you the best example for filtering is if you have ever communicated with a teenager, all they would come up with therapy they say is like, my boyfriend doesn't love me, he hates me. No matter the boyfriend or the girlfriend would have told 100 times that they love, but one time saying that I hate you is the end of all, right? So this is filtering. So you ignore all the positive things and you just focus on negative and make a conclusion out of it that, okay, nothing is working out. And, so things like that. Even it happens in the home. You tell your child 100 times that you love them or you are there for them or you care for them. One time you ignore them and they'll say, okay, my mama doesn't care me or she's not available for me, right? So that's filtering. Next one is polarized thinking or black and white thinking. So basically black and white thinking is either, I'll do everything or I'll do nothing. This you would see a lot with clients coming in with perfectionist behavior. Okay. So you would have heard people that, agar mere ko mood aa gaya na, I'll clean the whole room and make it look like, it's just built up today. Otherwise, I'll not do anything. I'm just so lazy. Right? So this is like the very famous example for this, that perfectionists, they'll say either I will do the work fully or I will not do at all. They want everything to be sorted. So there's no room for gray in their lives. They'll say everything or nothing. That's basically black and white thinking. Third one is overgeneralization. So what happens in overgeneralization is taking a single incident in time and using it as the sole piece of evidence for broad conclusions. So for example, when a person overgeneralizes, could bomb an important job interview, and instead of brushing it off as one bad experience and trying again, they conclude that they have terrible at interviewing. So one person goes for interview, they didn't have a good experience. They'll come out and they'll say, I'm so bad at giving interviews. I cannot do this. I'll never get a job. So they will generalize everything. Another example for overgeneralization is, you would have heard this people saying, all North Indians are like this. I hate North Indians. Okay, all South Indians are like this. I do not like South Indians. Just because they met or they had one experience of such, they would say that, okay, all these people are like this, right? All blacks are like this, all whites are like this, and things like that. This is all kind of overgeneralization. Next is jumping to conclusion. So similar to overgeneralization, but jumping to conclusion is basically without any evidence, without any proper evidence, you jump to conclusion, right? So sometimes we say that nobody likes me, right? Without even verifying why are they saying this or what's happening. They just say that, okay, nobody likes me or this person doesn't like me without even having any evidence. And sometimes you also feel that, for example, I have a fear of heights. So without even experiencing it or without even feeling it, I would say that, oh, okay, if I go to the top, I might die. I will die. And things like that. So that is jumping to conclusion without experiencing it. Next is magnifying or minimizing. So what is this? Basically, magnifying or minimizing is, so magnifying is, itna इतना होता है उसको इतना करना is basically magnifying. How many of you all understand Hindi? You all understand Hindi, right? I mean, once in a while. I can't hear you people. Can you please be interactive? That will help me and help you all also to learn. Mariamji, can you mute yourself? Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, so basically I was talking about magnifying. So basically इतना होता है उसको इतना करके बोलना, and minimizing is जो छोटा होता है, I mean जो बड़ा होता है उसको छोटा करके बोलना. Best example for minimizing is if you see people who are high achievers. If somebody goes and tells, oh congratulations, you did really well, I'm super proud of you, they'll say नहीं ज़्यादा कुछ नहीं किया, I've just passed, I've just got first rank, nothing much, and things like that. That is minimizing. And magnifying is they'll have a very small issue, but they'll make it as if it is like a very big thing and things like that. That's basically magnifying the thing, right? So next is personalization, where a person usually believes or feels that everything they do have an impact on external events or other people, no matter how irrational that is, but they feel that way. A person who has this distortion will usually feel that he or she has an exaggerated role in the bad things that happen around him. So for example, if a person goes late in a bus, and if the bus was waiting, they will feel that, okay, everything is happening wrong just because of me. I am responsible, self-blame, everything comes because of personalization. They'll feel that if at all I was on time, this wouldn't have happened. So I am responsible. So they'll self-blame, they'll self-criticize, they'll think that everything around is happening because of me. Right? That's personalization. Moving on to control fallacies. So this distortion involves feeling like everything that happens to you is either a result of purely external forces or entirely due to your own actions. They will not be able to think in a way that, okay, there's some of my efforts and there is some external factors also that's playing a role here. No, they'll say it's either completely because of the external factor or completely because of me, right? So for example, if I take an example here, say if there is a person who is suffering from cancer, they'll either say this is because of the pollution out there. I am maintaining healthy lifestyle. I have nothing to do with this. My genes are all good. It's all because of the pollution out there. Similarly, if the person has to stay internally, the person will say it's all because of me. No external factor has contributed anything in this, right? So this is how control fallacies work.
So Rashmi, I just had a doubt.
Sure,
so control
please.
fallacies and personalization are kind of similar, right?
Personalization is basically just looking at themselves, that okay, because of me. They'll not think of external factors at all. But whereas in control fallacies, there is external factors as well as me as person. They cannot balance it. So if I would be in that place, or if any other normal person is in that place, we would say that, okay, maybe pollution has also contributed, and I was also smoking for last 10 years. And that's when maybe I got cancer, right? But people who have this cognitive distortion of controlling fallacies, they will feel that, no, it's either that or this, right?
Rashmi, I'm sorry, I'm intervening because there is someone who had a problem. I'm sorry I cannot turn on my video today because I am really unwell. I was about to be hospitalized, but then too I'm taking a session. I'm not so well. Anyway, choice. If you want to understand control fallacies better, study about locus of control. This is related to locus of control. There's a concept called locus of control. The locus of control tells you whether you think something is happening because of the internal factors, you yourself, or the external factors. Well, I'll not take much of time, but study locus of control and you'll have an understanding of this. You can Google it very easily.
Sure, thank you. I'll do that definitely.
Thank you.
Right. Moving forward. Okay, next one is fallacy or fairness, where we often concerned about fairness, but this concern can be taken to extremes. As we all know, life is not always fair, right? The person who goes through life looking for fairness in all their experiences will end up being unhappy, sad, and in disappointment. Sometimes things might go our way, and sometimes they will not, regardless of how fair it may seem, right? So that's fallacy of fairness, where usually a person thinks that, okay, everything will happen according to my way because everything is so planned, everything. So there's no room for, not happen, things not happening his way. No matter how well planned you are, no matter how good you are at, keeping things in order, but there are days and there will be situations where things will not go according to your way. And next one is blaming. Blaming is when things don't go our way. There are many ways we can explain or assign responsibility for the outcome. One method of assigning responsibility is blaming others for what goes wrong. Sometimes we blame others for making us feel or act a certain way. This is very, again, I'll give you a very common example here. If you ask anybody, why are you crying? The only reason you will get to hear, especially since we are doing school counseling, I'll take an example of children. If you ask them, why are you crying? They'll say, he bet me. He insulted me. She is not talking with me, and things like that. So there's nothing of internal that comes. It's always like, okay, that person did this person did that. Even if you take adults for that matter, if you ask them, okay, why are you upset today, or why are you crying, or why are you sad today, they will say, okay, one of my neighbor is not talking to me. And because my husband left home without eating, I'm sad today, and things like that. So it's always, blaming our negative emotions or our feelings in others is basically blaming. Next is shoulds. So there are, if you have heard of these shoulds, is basically what means you would have heard or come across people who would always talk in terms of should and must. I should go to office. I should be on time. I should take bus. I must eat well, and things like that. So this should and must is basically a distortion, because that will eventually end up in some kind of frustration, irritation, because once you give that sentence like I should do this, and when it doesn't happen, you will feel that you're failing, you're not able to keep up the work, you're not doing as with the commitments and things like that. So that will, give a negative outcome or a negative impact of should and must. Next is emotional reasoning. Is basically this distortion involves thinking that if we feel a certain way, it must be true. For example, if we feel unattractive or uninteresting in the current moment, we think we are unattractive or uninteresting. This cognitive distortion boils down to I feel it, therefore it must be true. Correct? So for example, if I'm feeling sad at this moment, or maybe say nervous or anxious at this moment because this is my first presentation that I'm taking, then I will always think that, okay, my behavior or my nature in general is very anxious or very, nervous. I'm always nervous. I'm always anxious is basically what emotional reasoning says. Right. Next one is fallacy of change. The fallacy of change lies in expecting other people to change as it suits us. This ties into the feeling that our happiness depends on other people, and their unwillingness or inability to change, even if we demand it, keeps us from being happy. This is damaging way to this, because no one is responsible for our own happiness except ourselves, right? So sometimes we always say that, okay, this should happen according to us, right? And that might not happen all the time, and that will in fact affect our happiness, right? Next is global labeling or mislabeling. This cognitive distortion is an extreme form of generalizing, in which we generalize one or the other instances or qualities into a global judgment. For example, if we fail at a specific task, we may conclude that we are a total failure in not only that area but all areas, right? So for example, if a student is not being attentive in class, we always say that, okay, this person is always like this. He's unattentive in all this. Say the student is just not attentive in maths class, but when a teacher comes and tells to a counselor, usually what happens is they'll come and say, counselor, can you please counsel this child, because he's always unattentive in class. He doesn't, pay attention to the classes at all, right? So that is labeling or mislabeling that happens. Next one is always being right. While we all enjoy being right, of course, everybody wants to be right. This distortion makes us think that we must be right, and being wrong is very unacceptable. We may believe that being right is more important, and the feelings of the others, being able to admit when we have made a mistake, or being fair and objective, right? Heaven's reward fallacy is basically a distortion that involves expecting that any sacrifice or self-denial will pay off. we may consider this karma and accept the karma will always immediately reward us for our good deeds and things like that. This results in feelings of bitterness when we do not receive the expected reward, right? Many tools and techniques found in cognitive behavioral therapy are intended to address or reverse this cognitive distortions. So I'll stop a while here, and I want to have an interaction with you all. So the more you participate, the more we all will learn. So could you all, after understanding cognitive distortions, tell me that why is it very important to change or alter this thinking patterns? Why do you all think that altering this distortions is important? Do you all at first place think that it's important?
Yes, it's very important for our own mental health, basically. So we channelize it to a different way by taking a different approach of thinking.
Right. So, Shahana, if I have to ask you, say, for example, any one distortion for that matter, like, say black and white thinking. Why is it important to change? Or why is it important to sometimes also think in gray?
It's because you have to think on a broader perspective, right? You cannot just have a set thinking that this is how it is, this is how it will be. So right. It's just to have a broader prospect, basically.
And what happens if we always think that this is how it should be or this is how it can be and things like that? What happens if the person is thinking black and white?
I think you'll never be happy. And yes, and it's like I said, it's for our own mental health, basically. It eventually starts affecting us.
Right. Does it affect only us?
No, people around us, our relationships, our peers, our colleagues, everyone.
Right. So basically, it's very important to change or alter these thoughts or these thinking patterns, right? So yes. Now you might all feel like, how do we change or alter these thoughts and behavior patterns, right? So for that, we have different techniques in CBT. Using those techniques, we can change this thinking pattern, which will eventually result in changing the distortions and impacts our behaviors. Like I said in the initial this thing only, that our thoughts affects our behavior, right? So the moment you alter your thoughts, the moment you change your thoughts, it will definitely change or bring a change in your behavior. So now how do we do this? So there are basically 9 essential CBT techniques and tools that we'll learn today. So in fact, there are many techniques and tools that people across use, but today we'll learn all these 9 techniques that we can use, which are very common and are practical, right? So first one is journaling. So what is journaling? This technique is a way to gather about one's moods and thoughts. A CBT journal can include the time of the mood or thought, the source of it, the extent or intensity, and how we reacted, among other factors. So basically what you do to, so for example, if somebody is coming to you with first of all, when a client comes, we'll have to first identify what is the distortion, right? After identifying the distortion, we can, tell them that, what, we'll start with journaling today. What you have to do in journal is basically you write the time of the mood, that suppose you were feeling this way. So when was that you felt? How deeply you felt this? When was the thought that you got this? Does it happen? How frequent do you get these thoughts or reactions and things like that? So you ask them to note that down. Journaling is basically noting that down and saying that, so it helps you identify your thought and patterns and emotional tendencies. Ask them to describe them, and hence there would be a change, adapt or cope with them, right? Second one is basically unraveling cognitive distortions. This is primary goal of CBT and can be practiced with or without the help of a therapist. So in order to unravel cognitive distortions, you must first be aware of the distortions from which you commonly suffer. So I'll let you know all that all the clients that would come to us will not know that they have a cognitive distortion. If people know that, well and good, you give them a positive stroke and say that, I'm so proud and I'm so happy that you already know this. But if a person doesn't have that, you will have to bring that to their awareness and say that, look, what did you notice that you are thinking in black and white, or maybe you are just magnifying things. You're just, say, for example, if you appreciate somebody, you would have seen people not taking compliments, right? So you appreciate them, you compliment them, they will say like, no, yeah. So if you say a woman, for example, that your sari is nice. Oh, that is something that was gifted to me by my husband, right? So they will not immediately say thank you. They'll first say, oh, this was given to me by somebody, and things like that, right? So basically, you have to bring that to their notice that, you know, you are magnifying things and minimizing things. You are thinking in black and white, and that's affecting your emotional health and mental well-being. So what we can do is probably we'll identify these cognitive distortions and then challenge these harmful automatic thoughts, which frequently fall into one of the 15 categories that we discussed earlier, right? Next one is cognitive restructuring. So basically, what is these distortions appear, and then we restructure these cognitions, these thoughts, we restructure. So how you do that? Once you identify the distortions you hold, you can begin to explore how those distortions took root and why you came to believe them, right? So when you discover a belief that is destructive or harmful, you can begin to challenge it. So for example, if you get to know that, okay, why are you thinking this particular way? Once you find the cause behind it, you will be able to change the way that you think. So for example, if you believe that you must have a high paying job to be a respectable person, but you are then laid off from your high paying job, you will begin to feel bad about yourself. Instead of accepting this faulty belief that leads you to think negative thoughts about yourself, you could take an opportunity to think about what really makes a person respectable, a belief you may not have explicitly considered before, right? So sometimes we go ahead with our own belief system, our own core beliefs that, okay, I'll be respectable only if I'm paid enough. But where did this concept come in that, okay, only if you're paid high, you will be respected? So let's work on the root cause, and automatically your cognitions and the restructuring will take part, right? Next one is exposure and response prevention. This technique is specifically effective for those who suffer from OCD. OCD is basically obsessive compulsive disorder. I mean, you would have heard, like, the basic classic example of OCD is basically people washing their hands for like very frequently, right? You would have come across such people in your life. So you can practice this technique by exposing yourself to whatever it is that normally elicits a compulsive behavior, but doing your best to refrain from the behavior. You can combine journaling with this technique, or use journaling to understand how this technique makes you feel, right? So basically, you expose yourself to that situation. So for example, I'm thinking in black and white, I expose myself to be in that situation, and then I journalize that, okay, this was the time I felt this way, right? So you combine journalizing and exposing yourself to such situations. Next is introspective exposure. This technique is basically intended to treat panic and anxiety. It involves exposure to feared bodily sensations in order to elicit the response. Doing so activates any unhelpful beliefs associated with those sensations, maintains the sensations without distractions or avoidance, and allows new learning about the sensations to take place. It is intended to help the sufferer see that symptoms of panic are not dangerous, although they may be uncomfortable, right? Next one is nightmare exposure and rescripting. Nightmare exposure and rescripting are basically intended specifically for those suffering from nightmares. This technique is similar to introspective exposure in that the nightmare is elicited, which brings up the relevant emotion. Once the emotion has arisen, the client and the therapist works together to identify the desired emotion and develop a new image to accompany the desired emotion. Next one is play the script until the end. This technique is basically useful for those suffering from fear and anxiety. What do we do in this technique is basically the individual who is suffering or is vulnerable to crippling fear or anxiety conducts a sort of thought experience in which they imagine the outcome of the worst case scenario. So what we do is, so say for example, if somebody has a fear of height, so what we do is we help them imagine the worst come scenario. Okay, say for example, you go to the highest peak of the mountain, and then what happens? Okay, you might fall down. Okay, what else can happen? Okay, you might hurt yourself. Okay, what else might happen? Oh, you might feel dizzy. Okay, what else can happen?
Excuse me, ma'am. Sorry
Right.
to disturb.
Yeah.
Will you give all this technique in the group, ma'am? Because I didn't save them.
I'll reshare. I think this was shared by Sir, but I'll reshare.
Sorry to stop you, ma'am.
No problem.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, we were discussing about worst case scenario. So you one by one ask them, okay, if you do this, what will happen? Okay. Say for example, if you just go there, what will happen? Say for example, if a person has fear of driving. So what do you ask them? Okay, what will happen if you drive? Okay, you might indulge in accident. Okay, and then what might happen? Okay, you might injure yourself, you might injure others, and then what might happen? And this way you bring the worst case scenario out so that they are able to think in those terms. Otherwise, fear is always very internal and they wouldn't have expressed. They would just say that I'm afraid of driving, but they wouldn't have put across what makes them, what is that they are afraid of. In fact, they're afraid of accidents. They're afraid of getting injured. They're afraid of, things like that. So you bring that out, you let them express and come give them that space to talk about worst case scenario. Letting this scenario play out can help the individual to recognize that even if everything he or she fears comes to pass, the outcome will still be manageable sometimes, right?
मैडम मैं बाहर खड़ा हूँ वो तमीम के घर के बाहर ना
Noorji, are you willing to say something? Okay. Okay, the next one is progressive muscle relaxation technique. So this is basically a kind of relaxation technique. This is very helpful for people who practice mindfulness. Can somebody say me what mindfulness is? Are you all aware of what mindfulness is?
Yeah, it's a thin line between past and future, I guess.
Sorry?
It's a thin line between past and future.
Okay. Anybody else?
It's being present at the moment. Like, what are you doing? So you concentrate on stuff, what you're doing at the moment. Like, you know,
Right.
use your senses also, or there are many types of
Mindfulness.
Mindfulness.
Yes. So you're like very close to the right answer, that you be present in here and now, experience whatever you're feeling. You do not ignore or avoid the thoughts or feelings that you're feeling at the moment. You just let them come and you experience it, right? So that's what is that. And similar to the body scan, this technique instructs you to relax one muscle group at a time until your whole body is in a state of relaxation. So this helps a lot with people who are having anxiety or who gets very panicked in every situation, right? So what you do is you either can guide the client, or there are a lot of audios that are available on YouTube that you can play for them. So what you do is basically you focus on one part of the body, say your shoulders, and you just tell them that you relax that, and similarly you relax their whole body, and that way you help them relax. And because they are very anxious and panicky, so this is how you calm them down and bring to that emotional or stable state, right? That's progressive muscle relaxation. Next one is relaxed breathing. This is also very similar to mindfulness. But there are many ways to relax and bring regularity to your breath, including guided and unguided imagery meditation. Again, this either you can guide them. So what we do is we guide them by saying, imagine you are at a beach in a very calm place. There are flowers around. There's birds chirping. You can hear the waves. You can hear children playing around and things like this. So you guide them. You make a visualization and take them to that place, and that's how you help them relax and things like that. If you want, again, there are YouTube or audio recordings that are available for this, and you can bring to the normal state or a state where there's calmness, their breathing levels are intact and things like that, right? So basically bringing regularity and calm to your breath will allow you to approach your problems from a place of balance. So what happens when a person is very anxious or panic, they'll take decisions in that hurry. But once you help them or guide them through mindfulness or guided meditation, they'll become calm, and then they'll be in a place to take decisions more wisely and in a more calm state, right? So these techniques can help those suffering from range of mental illness and afflictions, including anxiety, depression, OCD, panic disorder, and many more, right? So CBT is very worldwide applicable technique for all kinds of disorders, most kind of disorders, right? The next one is the CBT Thought Record. So what is this? Over the last decades, CBT has rapidly grown, right? And you would have heard, like, this is very popular kind of therapy that usually therapists practice. You wouldn't have heard more of, say, REBT or say Adlerian therapy for that matter, but CBT, person-centered therapy, psychoanalysis, all are very famous and widely used among the sessions. So growing body of scientific literature indicates that CBT is an effective intervention for numerous emotional problems like depression, anxiety, stress, etc. But its most significant contribution to counseling and psychotherapy is the thought record. The CBT Thought Record is simple and accessible tool that allows clients to become their own therapists by keeping track of their dysfunctional beliefs or thinking patterns and challenging their irrational beliefs. So what is irrational belief? Does anybody know what is irrational belief? Can somebody at least give me an example of what irrational belief would be?
Like illogical thinking.
Right, exactly. Can you give me an example?
Something related to probably superstitions, like example, believing that a black cat crossed my path today, so my day is gonna go bad.
Okay, so that might be an irrational belief for you, right?
Example, yeah. I mean,
yeah. Okay.
Not for me, but as an example.
Right. Okay. So what
Like I do not deserve positive attentions from others.
Correct. So that is more close to what irrational belief is. So basically, I don't know who said that example of superstitions, but superstitions is very controversial again, because what might be irrational for you might not be irrational for somebody else. But what Fatma just said is just that, I'm not, I do not deserve positive compliments. This is an irrational belief, right? Because everybody deserves something good in their life, right? So with enough practice, clients who use the thought record develop self-awareness and adopt a rational thinking style to keep unpleasant emotions in check. So basically, CBT thought record and journalizing is same, where you maintain and record your thoughts, thinkings, how frequent, in what intensity, in what situation, and things like that. So by the end, you do not need a therapist. You yourself will be able to see that, okay, in this week I was thinking negatively so many times and in those situations. So in the next week, you will be prepared that, okay, when this situation comes, I will not think in this way. Maybe I'll change my thinking. I can think in this way other than thinking in this way, and things like that. So they can self-introspect, they can see that, okay, this is something that I have to change and I can change it in this way. So that's there. So what is a thought record in CBT? In essence, the CBT thought record is a worksheet that clients must complete between sessions to monitor their negative thoughts and dysfunctional thinking styles. So once clients have a good grasp of the principle behind this therapeutic tool, they can move to dispute the irrational or negative beliefs that generate depression, anxiety, guilt, shame, regret, and other unpleasant emotional reactions. So in time, clients learn to use the thought record as to go-to strategy to readjust their perspective and achieve a well-balanced outlook in life. So I'll give you one example. There was this one client of mine that I gave them this technique that, okay, I want you to record your thoughts, emotions, and feelings, that how many times in a day you feel this, in what situation you feel this, and how do you respond to that. Now it has become so that it has become their habit, even though they do not feel it so intensively, or they have overcome that negative thinking, that she still kind of records just to be in a check that, okay, she's like progressing correctly and she's not again getting back to her negative thoughts, right? So after a point, it becomes more like a principle or a routine that they have to follow just to keep in touch and not lose the track. So in time, the ultimate goal, why do people do this? The ultimate goal of the thought record is to cultivate a rational and robust mindset that doesn't waver in the face of adversity and misfortune, right? So one of the fundamental principles of CBT is that people experience unpleasant feelings because of the situations that life throws down their path, but because of how they interpret them, right? So for example, a person who has undergone, say two people who have undergone accidents, one person might interpret in a very different way from the other one, right? So 10 people can react in 10 different ways to the same event. That is because each has its own set of ideas, opinions, and belief system, and their ways of looking out at one situation. Unfortunately, not everyone is aware of how thoughts give rise to emotions, right? Not everyone understands that each of us is responsible for how we feel, behave, and decide, regardless of the circumstances. When life throws us a curveball, we often tend to pass on responsibility to others, or the God, the universe, and pretty much anyone on anything outside our control. In a way, it is comforting and liberating to blame someone or something else for our misery and misfortune, right? So I would like to stop here for today, and let's see. Okay, so if I have to ask you, like, what all we learned today is basically we learned distortions and different kinds of techniques that we can help somebody go through the distortions, overcome the distortions. Does somebody want to add on to something? Is there any questions that you would like to ask? Feel free to do so.
Ma'am, have you all experienced this thought record with patients with OCDs? How do you all handle such cases?
So, okay, OCDs, there are very different techniques from what we learned here. Yeah, thought recording helps with OCDs also. So you tell them that, say for example, if somebody is washing their hands frequently, so what we tell them to do is that basically you record it. You record how many times are you washing, right? And they, at the end of the day, they will only feel that, okay, I washed for like 50 times today. And they'll only realize that, okay, so many times it's not good. What am I even doing? And next day they'll probably try to reduce it if they really want to work towards it, right? So that's how it works for thought recording. Basically, thought recording is for thoughts that how many times did you feel think negative way. Basically, OCD is behavior recording, where you record the behavior that you're engaging. This also works with people with anger. Somebody who is very angry, who is very aggressive, we tell them to note down that, okay, what situation makes you very angry? How many times did you get angry? If you got angry, what was your response? Did you break something? Did you shout? Did you keep mum? What did you do? How did you respond to those situations? So thought recording, emotions recording, behavior recording works with all kinds of situations, with all kinds of people, and it's very helpful strategy because it's right there in front of them, and they themselves have written it that they got angry for like 10 times in a day, and then they'll realize that, okay, I shouldn't be getting angry so many times. So that's how powerful that is. Any other questions? Does anybody want to add something to this? Because as you all know, this was my first presentation. I wouldn't have known many topics. I just read through some of the PPTs and that's how I came. So does anybody want to share any feedback? That is also welcome.
It was a wonderful so Rashmi, I just had a doubt. I just had a doubt. So often people would suffer from more than one distortions, right?
Right.
So for them also, this like journaling is usually I've heard therapists saying that journaling is the first and most common method they try, and if that fails, they move on to the other methods. Is that how it goes?
Not everybody, because see, as every person is different, so every counselor's way and dealing with clients is different, right? So not everybody, but again, this is very common that usually counselors say to start journaling. So if there's something also, if a client is coming with very emotional, say is very not able to vent out or is carrying very heavy emotions, So what counselors say is better you start writing, you express in that way, because you cannot come to me or you cannot go to a counselor every day. Better you start expressing. So what the whole point of journaling is to express, to put out things out there in written, so that you can, so while you write, what happens? You're writing, you're thinking, you're seeing, right? And when you write, you spell it out also, right? So that way you're also hearing those things. So what happens? It becomes more evident there. Okay, this isn't real. Sometimes people just say that, okay, I'm thinking this way, and that doesn't make much difference. But when you write down, actually, you will know the effects, complications of it, and things like that. So you'll be able to guess that. But what happens in sorry, I missed out your question. Can I know your name, because I can see that as iPhone?
It's Joella. It's Joella.
Joella. Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. So your
Yeah.
question was basically
No worries.
journalizing. Yeah.
No, my question was that usually journaling is what is the most recommended tool, like initially, right? So, but how do we determine what would be the most suitable tool for which distortion?
So this comes with practice, Joella, that, you know, if you sense that the person has too many things that's going on in their life, this, say, for example, a person might have a bad life, the person might also be suffering bullying, for example, the person might also have relationship issues, the person might also be undergoing low self-esteem and things like that. So basically what we do, we take one thing at a time and we say, okay, now that what is the one thing that you want to work on? What is the one thing that you want to focus? What is the one thing that's affecting your life a lot, right? So we pick up that, we start working on that, and then slowly we go on to other things. So when we pick up one thing, we then come to the thing that, okay, what might help that person more. See, all these techniques comes in when the client comes in, we see what could help this person the most. We feel that is very good at expressing when it comes to writing. We tell them, okay, start journaling. I mean, every counselor does it in a different way. So this is my take on your question.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Rashmi, do you want a real feedback? Are you ready to take one? Okay, I'm sorry. As I said, I am not in a proper position, so I couldn't focus much on the session. But then, I hope you understand the significance of a feedback and how to take a feedback. So, this goes the sandwich way. I hope you've heard about the sandwich way, the sandwich approach of taking feedback. So, I'll begin with the good things first. So, excellent knowledge. You had what it as far as the knowledge is concerned, you had what it took to train us on CBT as far as knowledge is concerned. However, training, when I entered the session a bit late because think I was a bit I should not repeat that again. But then someone was telling about training. Training has a huge future. So when we talk about training, training is quite different from what teaching is. Now, the fact, what I'm happy about is that you had the knowledge that training is a bit different from what teaching is. But I would have really appreciated a lot. It could have been really better. That area of improvement was built up on the existing knowledge and get to know whether the trainees are involved and whether they are, whether you should have asked them questions and made. I'm sorry, but then this is for the first training session. It was a wonderful training session. However, rather than just going on with what I know, this is what most of the trainers do. So in the initial stages of the training career, when they do not know what training is all about, what they do is they go on with their own knowledge. And the other person is sometimes off. He doesn't even know what's happening. So after a moment, he loses. You're very enthusiastic in your own subject, like all the other trainers. But then at the end of the day, the purpose of training is to help the other person understand. And that is what you need to check on. Teaching and training are two very different professions. It is a very sorry state in India that even at the best of organizations wherein I've gone and trained trainers, I have trained like hundreds of trainers. I don't know how many of trainers have I trained. And I've had 100 trainers in one batch also, wherein I taught all of them, are not taught, but then trained all of them. So the main thing is that you need to build upon something which is existing. You need to check on whether I'm with you, and there's so many ways to do that. Going forward, if God wills, I'm as a trainee in this training session, so I should not have the right if sir allows us to we'll have a small train the trainer session. I have done so many of them, and I might help you with that. Otherwise, as a first attempt, it was a fantastic session because the knowledge was good and thorough.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to get trained by you for doing a better training. Also, get well soon.
Thank you. Thank you for your wishes. Thank you.
Yeah.
So wonderful session, Rashmi. Super presentation. Though you were scared initially, you were telling sir, you have a lot of expectations, but you did your job very well. We are here to learn from sir, but as a student yourself, you did very well. Proud of you.
Thank you so much. Means a lot.
Welcome.
Okay, so by this note, we'll end today's class. Fatima, is there something that we have to do?
Yeah, no, nothing. We just end the meeting. But before
Right.
that, I would like to say something.
Right.
Rashmi, you really did a great job. Fantastic. We all are here, and just sit back and listen to you. It's beautiful session. And just because, as I heard that you scared initially, but you did superb. Great.
Thank you so much,
Okay.
Fatima. That means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye all.
This
See
is
you
content,
tomorrow.
yeah.